I see a packed house right at the back. I hope we will make it worthwhile everybody's time and share some good insights through the panel discussion. I'll dive directly into the topic without wasting time. Mr. Singh, if we could start with SBI, right? There is a undoubted reach and depth that the bank governs in the country, right? If you could just set a basic perspective for the audience when we talk about collection, specifically in wholesale and mid-corporate banking. How do you see collection evolving? What kind of trends are you seeing from the revenue pools and the changes in the landscape? Would be great to get your perspective.
So, thank you, Abhinav. First of all, collection, the way BBPS is expanding, the numbers they have, and most importantly, the addition of services, the areas which RBI has opened last year, then this MPC also they announced something. So kind of Bharat Bill payment system, they can take up everything. Any kind of recurring payment can happen on BBPS. That is one piece. Second is compliments to NPCI and the BBPS team. I also happen to be director on the board of NPCI and NVBL. So the way they have handled this expansion of number of transactions, the volume they are handling, is amazing, is phenomenal. I was just going through some data and I saw that there is 52% YOY growth in digital payment transaction. One forecast, BCG says that, there is a study by BCG and what they say is, it was 3 trillion last year, going to expand to 10 trillion, 15 trillion in 2-3 years. So that is the kind of aspiration, that is the kind of traction or the situation is there in the payment system, the collection or payment you can say. Another thing, another data which is very interesting is 2017, 2018. One number I saw was, what was the total number of payment transaction? It was 2,000 crores, number of transaction, and 2,000 trillion in terms of the value, 2017-18. The transaction number has gone up in 5 years to 13,000 crores. So it's phenomenal growth. Now what we see, rather what we are doing and what we are seeing in the ecosystem, the relevance, how it is changing, the collection is changing. So every institution, any corporate I have, 10 years ago the relationship will be typically extend term credit or open a current account. The relationship as of now, that is kind of the current account or the cash credit account. This is a channel now, it's not a product, no longer. The product is the collection product you are going to offer to them, depending upon the need they will have. Somebody will have, say, I'm a very simple, small business. I don't have a website. Can there be a way that I also would be able to collect some one-off collection requirement I can meet this? So you need to have a product for that kind of a segment, where onboarding has to be very, very simple way. One day onboarding, very simple. I'm a large corporate. I am something like, I won't say Meta, but say Amazon and Flipkart. I also have collection requirement, right? And then product had to be a little different. But all the kind of products you have to offer, so very basic product for a very simple business, having some collection requirement, or an institution, educational institution. The NVBL number, they have roughly 23,000. This is the number I last saw. 23,000 plus biller onboarded. And it's a very decent kind of 4, 5, 6 years. Out of that, 20,000 are educational institution. So if I'm not taking much time, maybe one example I'd like to give. What kind of changes are happening and how we facilitate this. I happened to meet a customer in Kolkata last year. They were running one of the most prestigious school in Kolkata. And their pain point will be what? Collecting the fee, recurring fee. And I should get a good MIS, who is a defaulter, who has not paid. And essentially I was meeting them as a courtesy call, old customer, and also to discuss BBPS. Why don't you come on BBPS? Life will be much easier. After we presented the product, literally, they were kind of crying that what kind of pain points we had, and this kind of solution is there in the market. Maybe nobody has pitched this to me, so my life will be much easier. So this is just one example, but everywhere, whether it is education institution, whether it is at telecom company, you have to collect mobile payments, you have education, then you have e-commerce companies, You have government, income tax collection, income tax refunds, GST collection. So everywhere is very relevant, and the way it's expanding, the way it is making life easier for not only for the business, but the consumer also. Payment of bills. It's very easy. One click, you pay a bill. 5 years ago or 10 years ago, for example, you have to spend 4 hours to pay your electricity bill. You have to go and queue up. Either you go or your staff goes or your relative goes. Somebody has to go and queue up. So that's what we are saying. It's one click now.
No, no, fairly well articulated. Bhavesh, if I could come to you. Look, Mr. Singh has talked about, from a banker's perspective, a lot of use cases actually across the spectrum, large corporate, mid-corporate, merchants, individual. But again, very similar to SBI, even you have a advantage of reach and depth, right, in a very different customer strata and population. What have you seen from collection use cases perspective? How are they evolving, the trends in revenue pools?
Yeah, from our perspective at Paytm, our entire business is payments. So this is what we do for a living. We collect and we disburse payments, be it on the user or merchant side. I think the big two things which have happened in the industry, the user or a merchant, if he or she had to collect, there are multiple funding sources that people want to pay through. Right? Earlier, you could pay through a check, RTs, NEFT, IMPS. Today, you at least have 15, 16 funding sources on the user side. Right? I can pay through UPI, I can pay through wallet, I can pay through various forms of credit. Now I can pay on credit on UPI, etc., etc., etc. So this choice enablement has become a very big use case for a merchant to be able to provide to its users. So if you don't provide all the use cases to the user, you are most likely to collect lesser. On the merchant side, the merchant now has all kinds of acquiring side solutions available. You can collect online, you can collect offline, you can collect at the counter, you can collect on an app, you can send a link, you can give a dynamic QR, you can give a static QR. So what is happening here is there is an intersection of user side funding sources and merchant side ways to collect. And this intersection has given users a choice, which has built a massive business, and it continues to grow. The second big thing that we're seeing in the marketplace here is the definition of collect is no more restricted to large corporate getting a banking solution, and a user can pay to a large corporate or a small vendor can pay to a large corporate. The true democratization of anybody can now create a collection solution by themselves, coming on an app or coming on a web browser and saying, hey, I want to now send a link to 20 people who can open the link and pay me, is do it yourself. You don't have to go to a bank actually to go and say, I need a cash management service, which somebody will going to enable for me and I can do it. You can just go out, and not just Paytm, you can go down to any of the apps, including bank apps, to say, I want to collect from person A to person B. I'm a Zomato food delivery guy, I want to collect, I want to show a QR, or I want to send a link payment, or I want to create a web link, or I want an SDK, or I just want to open my APIs in the system and I want to collect, and you can do that. So I think this expansion has led to people being very, very comfortable from the user side and from the merchant side, and hence the overall scale of collection-led payment ecosystem growth has been phenomenal. We're seeing almost 60% growth in payment business in our volumes.
Yeah, no, thanks, Bhavesh. I think the theme is quite consistent. The fact that digital collection is improving, customers have a lot more choices across the spectrum. You talked about large corporate, mid corporate. Bhavesh, you talked about various other kinds of people. Vivek, if I could ask you, both the data points are, they are right. The collection is going through the roof, and digital platforms are providing convenience. But I'm sure there is scope for improvement, right? What are the challenges that you see in the current collection architecture that we could work upon?
So thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. And firstly, congratulations to Team NPCI and Nupur for the launch of the white paper. That is absolutely fantastic news. I will look to kind of go through it and understand a little bit more. But we work with BBPS, as Rana was, Ashutosh was saying earlier, very, very closely. And I think the reason I want to highlight that especially so is, look, in a large country like us, you need to have a public-private partnership to be able to collect at scale, right? So let's acknowledge that. Second, I think to the point that was being made by the panelists, we have to look at the client from an end-to-end perspective. So one is absolutely to Bhavesh's point, we take a very sharp view at the merchant, how we solve for the merchant across various modes of collection. One is to say, step back, let's zoom out and say, there's a large FMCG company that is selling to a tier 1 distributor that goes to tier 2 distributors who eventually get into the retailers, and the retailers are the merchants amongst others, right? And I think if I look at that expansive view of what it entails to be a high quality collection efficient country, right? I think, look, let's be clear, the B2C part, I think is reasonably sorted from an infra point of view, right? QR, POS, etc. What clearly needs to be done is we've got to figure out a way, and we have a role to play as responsible institutions in saying, in especially tier 3 to tier 6 markets, I think how do we basically increase the adoption? Is it an awareness issue? Is it about dipping into specific funds that have been set up? Is it to actually work and promote these funds? I mean, Axis, for instance, has a very strong Bharat banking strategy, right? So typically in the tier 3 to 6 markets, how do we basically leverage that, right? So that is a to-do on the B2C side, despite the infra being right. On the B2B side, the challenge is slightly different. I think digitization has worked to a fairly large extent. What has not worked is the consolidation point, the point that we have today many modes. And does the CFO or the treasurer get the one view on a dashboard or equivalent of all these multiple modes, right? And that has an implication from, look, I mean, do I have certainty of production? Do I have certainty of cash flows, right? Can I be more efficient, right? So I think that's an area clearly that is work in progress. I think third, very importantly, we have to think it also from the perspective that there is still a lot of cash in the system, right? So truly digitization from a collection point of view can only happen if we find ways to reduce that cash. That typically is sitting in our assessment in the tier 3 to 6 markets, where actually digitization is growing at scale much faster than tier 1 and 2, right? But yes, I think that is one area where we all need to play a part in finding a more efficient way to influence behavior at the consumer end, on the B2C end, and that I think will actually drive much further efficiencies. I was looking at some interesting statistics to kind of close my piece here. Look, I think the rate of change of cash in the system, right, while it has doubled between demon to now, actually every progressive year from 2017 to 23, the rate of change has actually decreased. That's a positive. That basically says we are collecting much more efficiently, right? So it's a question of now going 2 levels deeper and figuring out how do you solve for it.
No, fair enough. Sounds good. I'll come back to you, Vivek, on the PPP point that you made, and we'll just circle back, when we go to the second round. But Ravi, coming to you, you've heard the banker's perspective, you've heard the fintech perspective, and you bring a very unique angle to a platform, which every one of us uses today. How does WhatsApp figure out into the whole collection landscape, and how are you shaping it as a platform, not even as an organization, right? It's more than an organization.
Thanks, Abhinav, firstly, for having me here. Like you said, sorry. No, firstly, thanks for having me here. So like you said, I'm the odd one out on the panel, but the era is of digital. And everybody, I'm sure in the audience and here, is looking at how do we reach that last mile through digital, because that's the only way to make it commercially viable. We are the bridge that can make it digital in India. WhatsApp is something that almost every citizen has. I'm hoping everyone in the room has it. We have been able to reach the length and breadth of the country, and people have been able to connect with people. As part of our journey, we are now enabling businesses to reach out to people across the length of the country, and enabling businesses to use WhatsApp as a platform to drive lending, drive payments, drive collections, everything. And one fact, let me share, while we all are here as consumers of WhatsApp, probably WhatsApp is also the biggest business platform in the country. We may not realize it because there's no data, because it's very unorganized, but every small business, every remotest person in the country who's doing business, in some ways using WhatsApp to communicate with his stakeholders, either selling products, shipping products, or collecting payments. I'll give an example, one or two examples of the reach that we enable. And I'll talk of the remote India because in cities we know what WhatsApp does. We have a village in Tamil Nadu, which is a coastal village, where it's largely fishermen's village. The fishermen in the early morning around 4:35 go out for fishing, and they get their catch by 10 o'clock. From this remote sea itself, they take photos of the catch and send it to the fishing market where they need to sell and do the deal on WhatsApp even before they come on the shore. And they just deliver it and then collect payment and the job is done. Because it's perishable good and they want to find the best thing. Similarly, stuff is happening in Lucknow on Mandis where farmers reach out to there. So that's the reach that we thought we can now enable for businesses to really do lending or any sort of transaction that they want to do it. And we are building the platform towards that. So this is not the consumer WhatsApp that we use, but we are investing a lot on the technology side. We have built the building blocks where every business today can actually reach out to a consumer in whatever shape and form they want to do in a very automated, seamless way. And I'll give you some examples how businesses are using it. I heard bill payments, Mr. Rana, you said bill payments. We are actually enabling and we are working with NPCI as well for Bharat Bill Pay, where all of you sitting here within your WhatsApp can access any bill that you need to pay anytime and just with one single click make the payment. You don't need to search for the bill. You're sitting here, you just get the bill whatever time the bill is due and you'll just click and make the payment. And payment is not just limited to WhatsApp Pay, any payment instrument, any UPI, any credit card, any banking tool. We have a lot of businesses, like I'll give an example of HDFC Ergo, which have a big stake in farm loans, crop loans, and it's again a big business for them. The only way they could reach was WhatsApp. So they have actually built an automated bot on WhatsApp where they are able to communicate with farmers, sell insurance, and collect payments. And the farmer is not educated, right, as you know. So they're actually using voice on WhatsApp to do that. So that's where we are playing a role. And we do believe we can really be the bridge in India between the large businesses and the remotest part of India to make that scale. So that's where we are building and we're working with all the corporates here.
Fair enough. So, look, we have heard the growth story, Mr. Singh talked about it, Bhavesh talked about it. We have also heard some challenges from Vivek, and then we have, talked about what role a platform like WhatsApp can play. I want to switch gears and now talk about what do we need to do more from the proliferation perspective. So, Bhavesh, coming to you first, you've seen so much traction, and Vivek also talked about how the traction has maintained from demon till now, and there is an ongoing proliferation. But what will it take to accelerate it further? What are some of the unlocks in your mind which could be done?
I think again, I'll put about 3 points here on unlocking. One piece here is, you need to understand why somebody does not use digital collections and uses cash. The biggest impediment for a small business, be in tier 3, tier 4 town, or even the large corporates, is there's the cost. And cost can become a fairly decent impediment for a small shopkeeper, and cost can be a challenge also for the user if they have to pay. While I do understand that there is a thesis wherein to say that we should charge, but we belong to a thesis that this country is at least going to see 3 to 5x more growth in payments. And till then, payments have to remain very, very affordable in the system for the adoption to happen. So if today India has 30 crore people who use UPI and let's say you have 5 crore merchants, ideally, you should have 25 crore merchants and you could have at least maybe about 50 to 70 crore people who should use it. So the greed cannot come into the play of making sure that we start making a lot of money in payments, because you will see actually degrowth start to happen. The other piece here is the switching systems. But what do I mean by switching systems is, it's a multi-tenanted system, wherein you got BBPS on one side, you got the funding sources using various switches, be the bank switch for UPI, be the NPCI switch. Then you got the merchants who have to have the technology to be able to push bills to BBPS, or you should have various other people who are driving acquiring side. Now, if you look at the growth of payments and you look at growth of infrastructure, I think growth of technology infrastructure has not been of the same speed as growth of payments. And hence you find the customer trust being broken. Either as a merchant, when I'm going to fetch a bill of electricity board, I may find that the bill is not available because something has broken somewhere, which is basically technology. Or I'm trying to make a payment on a link payment through UPI of a particular bank, and the system is down. And my belief here is, overall, everybody has to come together to make systems more lighter, because they're very heavy, because they were designed 5 years back, and they have to make them more trustworthy for the user and the merchants to keep using. If these two things are continuously worked upon, which currently everybody is working upon, be the banks or people like us or the networks, you will see a much scale of payments in our system.
So, Ravi, I'd like to, come to you because over the last couple of weeks, we have been talking about this whole role of technology, right, in this space. And Bhavesh has alluded to the fact that, technology has to become simpler, lighter, for the adoptions to be better and fail rates to be lower and so on and so forth. Would be great to hear your perspective on this. What is the role of technology, both from stability, cost and efficiency? There was also a point made around the costs are higher when you start going deeper into the markets.
No, absolutely, Abhinav. If technology has to work, it has to be affordable, otherwise it won't work. And without technology, I don't think we'll be able to transform India. And that's the role that we're also trying to play and we are seeing play out. The biggest power that we have seen of WhatsApp and why WhatsApp has been so predominant across the globe is because of the ease of use and simplicity. Whether it's an 80-year-old person, my grandparents, my parents, or an uneducated person in a remote village is able to use that today. And if we have to transform this landscape in India, it has to be as simple. It has to be almost intuitive, where you just go and do things without even realizing that you're using technology. It has to be almost become part of your life. Like how I'm talking to you is how you should be able to do transactions. And that's the era on technology that we are trying to unlock via WhatsApp. And we obviously are keeping our consumers first. So we are learning from them. We are enabling, at least on WhatsApp, and I think that's the direction the industry is going. India is not English. India is not typing and texting. It's voice, it's native, it's intuitive. So we are bringing tools, multiple language tools. We already enable 12 languages in WhatsApp with 85% of population getting covered. We are enabling voice on WhatsApp where any language you can do. We are investing a lot in AI. All of you would have read in newspapers that Meta is investing a lot in AI because we have huge amount of information available of what users do. And we are going to bring those AI tools on WhatsApp where intuitively you can do things. You don't need to search a menu. You don't need to type anything. You just choose for what you want to do and enable that. On the businesses side, while I'm talking on the consumer side, on the businesses side as well, we are creating building blocks where a business can create a solution on WhatsApp which is as simple as you going to a branch and doing a transaction with a human. So we are building the building blocks where you can create a lending instrument, you can create transactions, like I said, bill payment, just single bill payment. You don't need to even send a reminder. The bill can pop up with a native reminder within the WhatsApp. Or even on the commerce side, like on the B2B side, we are enabling businesses to do that. We're also doing partnerships. So I'll share one more important thing, because not everything we as Meta can do. We are a tech player, so we'll enable the platform. But unless the ecosystem adopts it, this thing will not grow. So we're going out and doing partnerships with a lot of players in this space who deal with B2B. I'll name one of our organizations that we are working very closely with, this Tally, who have a very large ecosystem of small businesses that they deal with. And Tally is a B2B platform where their businesses by Tally platform are able to engage with their merchants, sending invoices, sending collection payments and everything to their Tally platform. And we are now natively integrating WhatsApp into their platform, where the moment an invoice is generated, it will be shipped to the WhatsApp to the merchant with a payment link, and with a single click payment, the payment can be remitted there. So we are working directly as well to build our platform, but also working with the ecosystem players to see how we can make WhatsApp available to everybody as a business to use for transacting.
Yeah. So, Vivek, coming to you, I think, we have heard the technology as an enabler that, Bhavesh talked about, then Ravi talked about, multiple things that we are thinking as a platform could do in this space. There's a large bank, incumbent in this space. There are many things which are, you in the first round talked about that there are things that we could, of course, improve, but there are also things which are work in progress. So from the prioritization perspective, what are the places that you're working on in terms of digitizing some of these journeys? What is the priority order? And secondly, if you could also touch upon, you talked about PPP being an enabler going forward. What kind of formats do you have in mind, when you think of that constellation?
So thanks. So look, a couple of things. I think we are on a path today, very clearly vision-wise, that says we want to be India's leading API bank, right? And I made that statement with all humility because I think, see, collection or collecting is an activity. It needs to be done well. It needs to be done efficiently. But I think what we have to solve for is what are the real pain points that I think Rana alluded to earlier. If I'm speaking with a very large customer, the pain points are not about collect money for me. The pain points would be, look, am I having visibility in time, right? Is my day sales outstanding reducing? Am I getting an impact onto my working capital? Is my reconciliation as efficient as is the collection? There's no point collecting, but my recon, I have 20 people basically working just to do the reconciliation. Are my underlying costs in control, right? So look, I think if you think around the breadth of those questions, and most importantly, the supply chain 2 levels down. So as I spoke about the FMCG company, tier 1 retailer, distributor, tier 2 distributor, then the eventual retailer. So if you think around the breadth of what the pain points are, what's occupying the headspace of the treasurer, who is looking to say, look, how do I become future ready from a digital point of view? In many ways, the answer to that lies with the client's ERP, right? And therefore, from our perspective, we are very clear that we need to find ways to integrate with clients' ERPs, right, in a way, shape and form that thread across their entire ecosystem, multiple levels. So today, for instance, to the pain points I spoke about, we are absolutely able to take a solution to a client which is not about collecting, but actually is all about reducing your day sales outstanding. We're able to take a solution to a client that says, look, we know you're dealing with very large buyers of your products who may not basically give you stuff in the shape and form you need to reconcile. But here is a AI ML driven solution that actually we can put together on the back of the rails that we have, API rails, that allows you to actually collect and reconcile, right? I think it's important for me to also talk about trade, because trade leads to cash, right? So if we have to collect well and collect efficiently, it's on the back of trade many ways, right? So putting together a supply chain finance proposition, typically when you're talking about a distribution system, right, is incredibly efficient and worthwhile on the same loop. So again, we have kind of put together a solution that allows us to extend supply chain financing in a digital way that allows effectively the anchor client, the main client, to actually collect much more efficient, have visibility, and it's largely MIS, right? To the point that I think Ravi made, look, I think we are cognizant that we also need to solve for the small customer, right? And again, the Tally example or at Zoho, through mobile-first propositions, we are actually making it supremely easy for them to connect to their accounting softwares, publish the invoices, and collect very, very efficiently. So look, I think the breadth of what we are doing is large. I think the big project that we have kind of kicked off, and again, not to confine it to domestic, it's important for me to also say, we also need to help exporters collect efficiently, right? And one big pain point right now is, all the stuff that we have around EDPMS and export proceeds and what have you. So again, that is one area where, again, through a public-private partnership, working with the central bank, we've got to find much more efficient ways to actually make that happen. So again, I'm just trying to give you a breadth of what we have done, what we are doing, and how we're thinking about it.
Sounds good. Mr. Singh, if I could end this round with you, so we talked about technology as an enabler. Vivek, as just talked about various formats and PPP being in one example, right? But if you look at any unlock from regulatory perspective or from NPCI perspective, which could actually enable some of this part of the industry, what could that be at the fundamental level?
So without prejudice to me being on the board of NBBL, one simple ask is, I have two asks today. One is a quite radical thing that will come later, but the simple one is essentially asked from the NBBL, and if there is a dependency on the regulator, for the regulator also. What I feel personally, and as head of this business in the bank, BBPS, if we compare with aggregators, payment aggregators, where you have need for recurring collection. For example, educational institution, simplest examples. BBPS, to my mind, is a better platform from the perspective of the consumer, those who have to pay, and from the perspective of the business also, those who have to collect. So one key challenge here of course, Mr. Chaturvedi is aware of this. So as payment aggregator, you are allowed to charge your fee to the consumer. For BPS, because of the UPI thing coming in there, nothing should be charged to the consumer. As an institution, why I should bother what you charge from the consumer? It has to be reasonable, definitely. But then, why I should bother about, this is my fee, I want to collect. Whatever charges you have, just like payment aggregator, you collect from the consumer. So this is one ask. I think this will make life little simpler. This will make BVPS a much more maybe popular product, convenience-wise also. If this change is allowed, that just like payment aggregator, consumer can be charged for the fee. So this is one ask. I don't know what is the latest here. Other thing is, this is a simple one to fix, I believe. Other piece is little radical. I am leaving a thought in this hall today. I am taking this opportunity to leave this thought with everybody here. Payment aggregator, we have, now RBI has made it mandatory to license them. And large number of new payment aggregators also, they have been licensed. Many more are going to come. The biggest pain point in onboarding, one, I have to onboard, say, each channel I have to do a separate onboarding. We are the only bank, just for maybe information purpose, we are the only bank which is running the payment aggregator business within the bank. And so the biggest pain point is, I have to onboard separately for each channel. I have to onboard separately for each institution. Why can't we have a platform like NPCI, UPI like a platform, where all the rules are set and you just have to plug in. So all the banks have to mandatorily connect with that platform. All the channels, they have to mandatorily connect with that channel. And if I have to onboard somebody, I just connect with that. This will be much simpler. And in terms of whether it is risk monitoring, from the regulatory perspective, also data analytics, in terms of settlement of funds, the ease of onboarding. So every which way, again, this is not easy. To have a platform like UPI for aggregator business, it's not easy, but this is something I believe is the way forward, the next step for the country to make things much simpler, much better.
No, thank you, sir. I think very well summarized, and I like the fact that there are some easy wins and then there are some more fundamental unlocks, which need to be debated. Given that all of us stuck to the time limit for each one of our answers, we do have space for a couple of questions from the audience if people are interested. Go ahead. Yeah.
Thanks, Abhinav. Myself, Manindra Verma from Yes Bank. While I was listening to the panel, I was reflecting on the combination that we have. This is one of the finest combination I can imagine in terms of the big daddy of banking, Paytm, which has really revolutionized the payment through mobile, the big impactful Axis Bank, and of course WhatsApp, which is really ubiquitous for the country and probably worldwide. My question is, of course, we have solution and we have proliferation for collect from India. That's doing well, getting good shape. But when it comes to collect from Bharat, collect for the mandi, for the farmers from mandi, for the vegetable producers, for the dairy, fishery producers, what are the next best action that we have in our mind, which we will really take the benefits of these tech for the country, and probably it will help in multiplying the developmental opportunities which all of us have. Thank you.
No, I think everyone is quite apt to answer this. But Mr. Singh, if you were talk about SBI experience.
So if I, maybe the question, just to understand, the question is, you want?
If you were to talk about the rural experience, Bhavesh
Yeah.
also talked about it, it's difficult because the cost of collection in rural is higher, it is difficult to reach. So we haven't created solutions for Bharat. We have created solutions for the urban population, for the more educated ones. But what about the Bharat collection?
So if I don't know whether it is in public, must be in the public domain, the kind of launch which is going to happen some few hours from now by the RBI governor today in this event itself. So essentially that will be addressing many of your questions. Conversational UPI. in vernacular languages. So one side is how to empower everybody, the Bharat piece of it, in using digital collection, digital payments rather. They are the payers. So from that perspective, so what we have done as a country, what our regulator has done, what NPCI has done in terms of easing this or popularizing this or making things easier, UPI 1, 2, 3, the feature phone-based, this thing, the payment side of it, then which is coming today, conversational UPI, the wallet thing, so you don't have the, you are not dependent on the internet connectivity to do a transaction. This is also, I think, one of the launches today which is going to come. So very big things are going to come. Many things have come last year. Very big things are going to come in the launch today by the Honorable Governor, RBI. So that will largely answer the questions we have in terms of expanding the reach of digital payment ecosystem. The collection piece, I think we have discussed a lot in this. Bhavesh was quite articulate on this, what the Paytm is doing. But one example I'd like to give, we are doing a lot of, for example, PM Swanidhi loans. This is street vendors, 10,000 rupees loans. So the effort now, suppose I give a loan today, so idea is financial inclusion and meeting the credit requirements of this micro segment. So that is one. One option is I give them loan. After 2 years, I suddenly wake up, no, I have to give some mechanism for collection also. As of now, what we are doing is credit and the UPI QR simultaneously. Second piece is, this is my favorite example. A pani puri wala, Bombay mein kya bolte hain, golgappe wale, jo bhi. So, some years ago, if he is popular, if the pani puri is good, there will be 10 people in the queue, always. And then one has been served, and then the other person is waiting because he has to exchange cash and changes and all those things. So, his 5 minutes is lost just exchanging cash, right? Getting the payment. As of now, what is happening, if you notice this, there is a sound box, courtesy Paytm. We are also doing this now. So we learned something from you, and now he is not bothered. He served you, you pay, he is to the next customer. His revenue has increased. As a consumer, I have a much lesser wait time. This is the change, this is the revolution which is happening. That segment, the Bharat piece of it. I hope this answered your question.
Any insights that you would want to share, any initiatives that you have, either at Paytm or Ravi at WhatsApp, from the fraud prevention perspective, specifically for payments and collections?
No, I think this is a great question. Anything which scales that fast brings in fraudsters. We all are seeing that happen. So there is an obligation of the user in terms of education, and there's an obligation of the network or payment service providers like ourselves to be able to safeguard digital payment ecosystem. And there are a bunch of things which has happened, but the fraudsters obviously are trying to do what they are trying to do. But I can tell you from a Paytm perspective, which is also powered by NPCI and by RBI in totality, and we've added some things more. The device binding of the user to the SIM and to the device IMIE is the biggest feature which is out there now, which does not allow the user's app to be account taken over. Right? So earlier you could not bind. People used to put a SIM, take the SIM out, the device is now available with an app, and they could start doing payments of UPI, etc., which is not now possible. And it's happened on iOS, it's happened on Android. The regulator has mandated that you cannot have a user using the app if it is having a version which is more than 6 months old, which means you have to keep upgrading the patch of the security on the app. And the fraud rates, we process more than 4 billion transactions every month. So we can clearly see the fraud to sales ratios are like, dropping a lot more. The other thing that we are using, and I think Vijay has spoken about publicly also, is purely from generative AI perspective, we're using telemetry. And the telemetry is becoming more real-time on data. Because you know who's the customer, where is this customer actually been transacting historically, where is this customer most likely to be transacting historically, and where is the customer on a real-time basis transacting now, you're able to see merchant, user, funding source, category, and the event of transaction in a real time. And the machine is learning that this transaction should go through or not go through. And the moment we invested in telemetry and we went through this piece, we are clearly seeing that those edge case events, wherein you could have a user who's based out of you can take Ludhiana as an example, all of a sudden will find a transaction which could have happening from XYZ district in Bihar or XYZ district in Haryana. And you will have no clue because the account has been taken over by some fraudster sitting in the remote place. But with solution like telemetry, you're able to real-time process, I would say, multi-terabyte of data. It is expensive, but it is terabytes and terabytes of data on real-time processing to say, oh, this pattern doesn't meet the security understanding, and we are seeing more than 70% success rate in stopping. And you are now giving the user a second factor authentication right on the transaction itself and saying, hey, can you actually show me your face on the app? And I can check, is this the user actually? And you know it's not the user, and the guy drops off. So this is an evolution. I'm sure the fraudsters will obviously try to overbeat you, but there's a continuous expectation from the digital ecosystem to be able to do that. And more so, to your question on Bharat, Bharat is a massive trust issue of education, and people can really be taken for a ride. Soundbox invention was because of this insight that people used to show spoof app and saying, "Maine aapko paise de diye." And there was no money because the bank SMS could come or not come. And we invented this product to say, oh, let the sound confirm the user, the money has come or not come. So these are the things that everybody in the ecosystem will have to do, and this is what Paytm has been doing. And so far we're successful, but this is a run against fraudsters. So you have to keep running much faster than they are.
So fraud for us is not just banking or financial transactions. WhatsApp is so ubiquitous that it's being used for many not so good things. And we have invested very heavily in AI and analytics to actually track users, and we take action real time. I'm not sure if people read the news yesterday or day before. Just in last month, we offboarded 72 lakh users in India. We just offboarded them. We shut them down. Because our AI engine said, hey, maybe they are not doing the right things, either they are spamming people or they're doing something wrong. And we take proactive actions. We're not even reactive, we are proactive in this thing. Specifically when we are talking of opening businesses and enabling businesses via WhatsApp, we're actually going through a very rigorous process to ensure no fraudulent business gets onboarded. So we have a very steep authentication process when we allow a business to onboard and start transacting with businesses. On top of it, based on the feedback that I got specifically from the banking clients, we are now opening up two-factor authentication on WhatsApp when you're looking for a transaction via WhatsApp. If you want to transact via WhatsApp, then we'll ensure that the businesses have authority and empowerment to authenticate that user again via OTP or a different authentication method as well. And we are going to very soon launch something similar for small businesses as well. Because while the bigger banks have their own systems to detect fraud, small businesses where the biggest risk is. So we are now going to announce verification of small businesses and then allow them to use WhatsApp for business transactions. So we are investing a lot in AI and ML, and we are also creating tools where businesses have verification processes inbuilt via WhatsApp.
Okay, so we are at the end of the panel, and I know it's difficult for me to summarize everything that we discussed today, but I hope all of us got away with some insights, and really appreciate for everyone being a patient audience, and thank you so much to all the panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.